Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Svetasvatara Upanishad. We are on page 65. We've just completed the fourth mantra. We will go to the fifth. And the fifth is talking about five factors. And I'll read the Sanskrit and then read the translation and then explain what the commentator has spoken about this mantra. Pancha Shrotrombum Pancha Yoniugravakram Pancha Pranormi Pancha Buddhyadi Moolam Pancha Vardham Pancha Dukkho Vegham Pancha Shadbho Vedam Pancha Parvad Adhimaha. Now here the translation is, starting, we know the river which has five currents of water, of course, which is made turbulent and tortuous by the five sources, which has waves in the form of the five organs of actions, which has its origin, that mind, which is the root of the five cognitions, and which has five whirlpools, the river, the rush of whose mass of water is constituted by the five sorrows, and which has 50 branches and 5 stages. Page 66, please. We'll look at this one after another. Before we can go into it, this is much closer, the analogy. We've seen the wheel of Brahman. Okay, the wheel is external. Okay. Now this river analogy is given. It's internal. External and internal. But this will be much closer. Like the wheel, it keeps on revolving, but it's the same wheel. And the river that keeps on flowing, but actually it's the same river. Like in Buddhism or in Vedanta also, you don't see the same river twice. The river has changed, but you might argue, I've seen the river, I'm seeing the river every day, that's the same river. You're not seeing the same river. You've not seen the changes there. So the river also is flowing, but it's the same river. It's the same river.
So they're talking about the mind.
Yeah. We'll take your questions later on.
Okay.
Because once we get rolling, I don't want to kind of shift gears.
Okay.
Then what happens is, and all great civilizations, they rose on the banks of the rivers. So the river was their lifeblood. They adored it. Yet they seen its turbulence, and yet the turbulence was just at times ignored or just taken in your stride, because that river gives you life. So the wheel of Brahman is one, and this one, it could have stopped there. Just they have explained everything in the wheel of Brahman, but why more? Like I said, we have two things. One is the reality has two aspects. One is the dynamic and one is the static. Okay. One, as they say, Brahman is that beyond time and space and causation. And it's that same Brahman within time and space and causation. Because the beginning mantras showed sages inquiring what is the cause of this universe? Time, destiny, karma, whatever. And it was proven that it is that reality called Brahman. So if that reality is Brahman, it's the root, you will expect that tree also to follow its characteristics. That is, if the cause is Brahman, the effect too will be Brahman. Because you cannot have a cause A and something else as an effect B. You need to have the same thing in a different form. This is the causal, you can say, relationship. So when we talk about the wheel or talk about the river, what happens is we must understand that these sages, when they're talking Adi Maha, we're talking of Adi Maha, that is, we understand, we know, we've seen this reality, this is what it appears like. And those people were culturally bound to see certain things in a particular way. And explaining this, the reality through the cultural analogy or the historical or whatever you like. Okay, if there were some people, there were sages were living only on mountain tops, they would have given a kind of a different analogy. Okay, that is now. And secondly, now the Upanishads speak about something called the great sayings. It's called Mahavakyas. And one of these Mahavakya, Maha is great, Vakya is sayings. One of this in the Aitri Upanishad, it is called Prajnanam Brahma. That consciousness is everywhere. Okay. Now, when you say consciousness is everywhere, like I said, now we are in the dynamic aspect of consciousness. You must not understand that consciousness is just like a kind of a neutral thing here within us and in the world. No, it's dynamic. And if it is consciousness, see, when these sages they grew up on the banks, most probably, of mighty rivers. And there was one very mighty river called the Saraswati. That got dried due to the kind of a thing, some uh, cataclysmic event in the Himalayas. And it stemmed the flow, and that people started moving around. So the first hymns in the Vedas are addressed to the river Saraswati. And later on, this Saraswati is now a luminous river of consciousness. She flows and illumines our minds. You know, various things are like given. So this river has now two aspects for us. One is the turbulent aspect. You have the waves and the whirlpools and the, you can say, the various streams in it. And we also have the river of consciousness. Okay, so that's right. And so when we are looking at this, keep in mind that river of consciousness. It's like molten. You can say gold appears like molten gold. It's luminous light. It's within us, outside us. Because if you look at the particles in our bodies and even in our minds, It's always in a flow. It's always in a flow. So that's the reason why this analogy is given. So we know the river. We know the river. Yes, this is exactly what the Upanishads keep on speaking. We know. And Swami Vivekananda used to says, religion is what? It's realization. Until unless you do not realize, there's hardly any difference between you and an atheist. And atheist at least keeps quiet. But nowadays atheists also keep on shouting. But you keep on shouting, yeah, there's a God, there's a God, there's a God. And yeah. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say that if you know there's a God, what are you doing about it? It's like, you know there's a huge treasure behind this wall. And if a thief comes in and will he be able to sleep? His whole attention will be how to get at that treasure. So when we know there's a God, what are we doing about it? Lip service? No. We are approachable. But that you can say the tempo has not picked up yet. We are okay, it's mine, don't worry. I'll take it out later. So we know. That's it. So Pancha Shrotrambhum, now which has 5 currents. We know the river has the 5 currents. We have a river and we have on different levels of the river, water flows either fast or slow. So we have the 5, you can say, currents in that river. The 5 currents are, as I say, the Gyanendriyas, the knowledge, sensory knowledge, you can say, instruments, the 5 knowledge, eyes, ears, tongue, taste, touch, smell, these to the sense. Because this is like a river. And actually, this whole world comes and tries to impinge on your brain. And the brain, wait. Not so much. I'll take a fraction of that. And it's true. It's just a kind of a fraction of this, just meant to protect your body. It's not supposed to help you realize God. Now, if you think the brain is capable of expanding this spectrum of vibrations that come in, it can, but to save this body, to protect this body, the brain is sufficient. So we are actually swarmed with innumerable sensations coming out, and we take just to save ourselves because we need to react quickly to things. We just take a thin spectrum of that and say, okay, this is fine. I live in that. And that is what happens to us. We live in that spectrum and we cannot expand it to higher and lower, you can say, levels. So the 5 currents are the 5 sense organs. The next is, we know the river. Panchayoni Ugra Vakram, which is made turbulent. Ugra, that Ugra is that the violence. Sometimes when the storm arises, you see that same placid river, and the kind of choppy waves. Is this the same river? Oh my God! It is a destructive element. And Vakra is actually crooked, torches by the 5 sources. That's the 5 elements. Now these 5 elements. Now when you have a sensation, you have sensations that are coming in What are the sources of the sensations? The sources are the five great elements: space, air, you can say, then fire and water and earth. These, of course, have a kind of broad generalization because we have senses that can you can say understand these things. Now, this is the source of those, you can say, elements. Now, when we talk about, it's all five, five. Pancha is five. Panch, five. Okay. And why are these elements? These elements are never in a kind of a, what I would say, really calm. Because when you have something extremely calm, there is no creation. Something has to be whirling about, pushing and pulling and dragging, this and that. Then you have some excitement. You go to watch a Super Bowl and you watch both the teams just standing there. You see what will happen? The stadiums will empty. What are they doing? They're just watching each other. Or you can say, Paul is here, and it's like two football teams, soccer teams. And he's saying, what are they doing standing out there? Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, there's no game then. Fine. So we have this whole of nature, as you say now, the whole of nature as a kind of a turbulent, you can say, stream of water. And now again, look at it from the standpoint of the stream of consciousness. The stream of consciousness also on various levels. Sometimes, most of our times, that consciousness is subconsciousness. It's like that subconsciousness is running our bodies. We don't have to think, oh, my heart pumping. Yes. I've got to look at it. If I look at it, then I find that the snake is coming to bite me, and then there maybe I'll die there if I keep on looking. So certain things are taken care of by consciousness. You don't have to think about all these things. They're all automatic. And then we have on the conscious level the various things. We look at that same thing from a different standpoints, and depends on our state of mind. This very thing becomes annoying, or this thing becomes fruitful, or this thing becomes like it's okay, fine, it's there. So look at this mass of materials. It's like a river which is turbulent, violent, always in kind of a motion. I reminded you of the dynamic aspect of creation. And it has Pancha Prana Urmim, which has five vital forces. Urmi is our waves. Now we have these five, you can say, vital layers within us. We have one that subdivides into, you can say, the rest. So we have something else. She knows better. So we have something called the prana. That's the, you can say, we breathe to that. And we have the apana, that which is downward motion, excretion and all these things, and holds the prana down. Okay. So breathing, excretion, and then we have the samana, that takes care of the digestion, circulation. And we have the dhyana, that which is connected with the nervous system, with the heat of the body, and various other things. And then we have udana, which is also it's a kind of a signal for departure. It takes the individual soul out of this. Okay. And besides also heating the body up. So we have these 5 pranas inside, 5 vital forces, the various, you can say, functions of these vital forces within our body to keep it alive. It is important. That's why it's called vital. And as I've said before, these pranas are both external as well as internal. And internal, we know what it is. It has a mystical element which is spoken of in the uh, uh, Shaivism, Kashmir Shaivism. That is the one branch of philosophy which had its origins in the Vale of Kashmir. But we won't go into that because the commentator here is quite strict. He's saying you don't have to bother about that mystical element. Just understand that this river is like this. There is an external river and there's an internal river also. So you see, when I look at a particular thing, I'm looking at a representation of that thing here within me. It's not that real thing. Always. Perception, where do I perceive it? My perception is inside, within me. And but that, whatever the book is out there or the river is out there, yes, the river is out there, but you perceive that river here. So we have the dual aspect. What is external is also internal. And this has to be remembered because Vedanta slowly leads you from the external to the internal. And all these factors have been mentioned by these rishis in order for us to locate ourselves in time and space. Where exactly are we located so that we can start moving inward? Because this is a subjective science. It's not, does Vedanta clean your streets? No, it doesn't clean your streets, but it can divinize you. And that then later on you can see that's all divine. So you won't be bothered much about street cleaning.
Oh, thank God.
Because when we talk about Vedanta being practical, you got to understand this. It's not social work or something like that. It's like understanding that you are that Atman, and through that understanding, you keep on working. And when you work with that understanding, your work is no longer work; it is worship. So that's what. So we have the next Pancha Buddhyadi Moolam. Oh, the root. You see, when we are talking about perceptions, all these the streams of, you can say, matter or streams entering inside, we grasp it to the sense organs, and then when we grasp the sense organ, it is established that perception and cognition is established in the body through the 5 prana. Okay, because until unless that perception is not embodied, it does not give you that kind of experience. And that's the reason why we don't really, you can say, know of a kind of say easy method of embodying that divinity. But there's only one way to do that. You divinize yourself. Make your body and mind so pure that it will sorry, encapsulate that experience. It's not that we don't understand that the Brahman is a reality, that we are now students and of Vedanta. We know, we've been hearing about Brahman is the reality and everything, and it's everywhere. Huh. But why can't we really grasp it? Because this instrument is not yet good enough. The nerves are not fine enough to catch that experience within itself. Yeah, how can you catch the Brahman? Yes, you can catch the Brahman. There in your heart, you can see Hriday Kalayati Vidvan Brahma Purnam Samadho. It's here that you can really grasp that Brahman. So and most of our spiritual practices are meant only for this. Nothing else. They say you do japa because it purifies the body and mind. Practice yoga because that you can say detoxifies all your nervous system and all the system. There's vata and pitta and kapha and all these things. And then Sri Ramakrishna's body was made of extremely pure sattva, and that's the reason why any slight touch or even a proximity to a kind of a evil person would throw him into a kind of a fit in the sense of it's painful. Uh, that's the reason why. Not because he hated that person, because his body and mind was so pure. Simply, it was not possible for it to get contaminated with this. So we have this thing, and now we have the mind, the mula. Now this mind is mula is one, that is the root, and uh, all these perceptions that come in the five, they have to be harmonized and categorized. Otherwise, I will not be able to. If there is no unifying element in my mind, then there will be a discordance between what I see and what I hear. And am I seeing this now? Oh, I'm seeing it yesterday. No, no, you're seeing it now. How come I'm hearing it and I'm seeing it at the same time? No, no, no. You, of course, there are some brains, especially artists, that they can sense in the sense of cross spectrum. That is, when they hear a tone or a sound of music, they can see color. I think there's a term for this. I'm not getting it right now.
Synesthesia.
Yes, synesthesia. Right. Thanks. So, but then that's only a fraction of the people can do that. But generally, each thing is categorized according to its element. The ear hears the sound. Okay, fine. And there it is. It makes sense of all these cognitions, unifies them, ties them together. So that's the reason why you need a mind. Yes. And to unify all these things, the five things together. Otherwise, we live in a kind of a confused world. The mind itself will become confused. And this is what happens when you take some drugs which are hallucinatory, or you can say schizophrenia. "Hey, I'm hearing this. It's a voice of God. And the voice of God is saying, go to the edge of the cliff and jump. Then you know there's something wrong. Your mind will say, no, don't do that. You're not a bird. You come back. So it makes sense of all these sense data that's coming in. And that's what it protects this body. And then he's given a long quotation from the Mandukya Karika. I'll read it at the end of the second para. All that there is, together with the moving and the non-moving, is a manifestation of the mind. When the mind ceases to think, duality is not at all perceived. Yeah. When the mind ceases to perceive. When is that? Oh, the mind ceases to perceive. Oh, we get an inkling of it in deep sleep. The mind does not perceive anything. There. So that's why it's saying Tatra mana amana bhavati. There the mind becomes a no mind. That's in a kind of a temporary stage called deep sleep, where you don't perceive anything, there's nothing to perceive because there's no mind at all. In higher states of samadhi, also the mind merges in its causes. And then there's a flash. In fact, if the mind cannot merge in its causes, you can never perceive the reality straight here, direct. So it's the mind that comes as a kind of a screen between you and the reality, showing you something else. Is that thing out or is it inside? Whether it's green or it's blue or white. The mind has made sense of this world because it has to keep this body in a survival mode. It has to survive, and it cannot let go so soon because it has acquired this body after quite a big struggle, and it's not going to leave it so soon. I'm going to sit down here and wait till the whole thing is finished. Then I'll. Who knows? Maybe I won't get another chance, or maybe it will take a very long time to acquire another body. So here we have the mind is the ruler of this. You can say it makes sense of everything, and then you're saying, you see, mind. I want to realize God. The mind says, yes, good, and then after a while, oh, it's so difficult. Mind will. I told you so. Yeah. And the mind deludes you because if you're going to realize God, the mind is going to die. It knows. It's it's not going to let you off so easily. That's the reason why you're meditating. So meditation becomes so deep, and suddenly you think of your neighbor's dog. The mind. You can hear the barking. Go, it's hungry. Hey, that's not my dog. And you start with a kind of a dialogue with your mind. This is one of in spiritual life. This is one of the biggest harms that can come to a practitioner. We keep talking to our mind. That dialogue ought to stop. You keep on. No, I mean, ordinarily you need to sometimes. Yes, I can do it. I will do this. I will do that. But when you are in a kind of a meditative state, stop all that chatter. Oh yes, it's a mental chatter. And mental chatter is more like a default mode. We are doing something, we stop, and then there's a chatter. And then we engage ourselves something, and then after a while, oh, yeah, that's the chatter. Hmm.
When you say talking to the mind, do you mean engaging with the thought as opposed to letting the thought just pass?
No, you're engaging, you're holding it.
So to stop talking to it is just to let it
Yeah, let it go. Just look at it. Yeah, that's the idea. Let go. Because what we feel that this is mine, this thought is mine, I'm not going to let it go. I won't let it go into those vaults of memory. I want to pick it up, enjoy it, and then dwell on it for a while. And then I know I'll keep it there. And I can retrieve it whenever I would like. And there are some harmful thoughts which I should have let it go. but I haven't. There they are there. They are still there. Sometimes prodding me and poking me. Yeah. To continue the last, you can say the last para, please. We saw the river Panchavartam, which has 5 whirlpools. Ah, yeah. And because in a rushing stream, you always get whirlpool. And this is what is it. So you get into it and you are pulled inside. You might not even know. Suddenly, if it's a large whirlpool, you might you'll whirl you around and then there you are, drown. Yeah. And what happens is we are overwhelmed at times. Our senses get overwhelmed. And then what happens is, hey, quiet down, quiet down, quiet down. And we say, it will either distract us or lull us to sleep. Go, sleep it off. Go. Don't bother. I don't know how far it's true, but in Japan they don't build very straight roads because there's a tendency for the drivers to it's a straight road, and they go through the micro sleeps. They might not even realize, but they're going through those the fraction of a second they doze off. So they make these road tortures crooked and this and that. We have a tendency. Oh, I know this, and if my interest is not perked up, then what happens is I go to this micro sleep. The brain itself. In fact, the brain itself is like a kind of a uh, blinking light. It's not continuously awake. That it blinks, and that's so wonderful. Eh? Conserves energy and keeps itself okay, fine. Yeah, this has recently been discovered that. So here we have. So otherwise, we'll get overwhelmed with all these kind of sensations are coming. Yeah. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Okay. So otherwise we get drowned. We see a bar of chocolate and the mind goes there, and somehow it might be innocuous. But when I was a child, I loved those chocolates, and I used to stare at those chocolates in the windows, shops, and then I keep on. When I was young, I used to. There you go. Then you think of your mother and your father and history. There it is all. Then let's come back. We are just taken away. You don't even realize that. After a while, God, let's come back. Let's come back. Let's meditate on Sri Ram Krishna now. Then we have the 5 Pancha Dukkha Oga Vegham. The rush, you can say the Veg, you can say the push, you can say Vega, of whose Oga mass is indeed constituted by 5 sorrows. The 5 sorrows, we are, like, we have everything. Remarkably, humans have everything they would ever have desired. We are fully equipped. Even those who are, as you say, handicapped with a particular thing, no, it might be handicapped, but in other areas, they have got those particular senses, kind of hyper. I may not be able to see, but I may be able to feel my way through touch. So it's kind of it's a magnified. So there is actually no disability. When we acquire a body, we are perfectly suited to meet our ends. Ends in the sense of what is the end of human life? Swami Vivekananda says, knowledge is the goal of human life, not pleasure. pleasure and the search for pleasure comes to an end. So we are going towards knowledge. And this instrument that we have is qualified to seek knowledge, to acquire knowledge, to experience, and through knowledge, transcend. So, but then we're saying the five sorrows of being in the womb, of birth, of disease, of decrepitude, and of death. This is here we have these five sorrows, always trying to pull and push us and this and that. When we have acquired, and that's the reason why the scriptures say that durlabam, it is very difficult to acquire. This human body is very difficult to acquire, and it is by the grace of the deities, God. Then Devanugrada. It is, yes, and then what you have is approaching the Guru, and then you have the desire for liberation. These things are even more difficult. Okay. The Guru and you can say living with the person. Manushyatva, Mumukshutva, Mahapurusha Samshraya. This human body, and then getting associated with the holy person and desiring knowledge and liberation. These things are extremely rare. But like the human body is extremely rare to be acquired, and it's by the grace of the gods.
And yet there's an increase of birth these days. More and more people are born.
Oh yes, they will be born because there are many things evolving. The grass and the trees and the animals and it's a whole river of evolution. Oh, there you are. You thought that it's only us. And what about the semi-celestial or celestial beings there? There are plenty. There are plenty. This whole universe is crammed. There's no empty space in this spiritual
So
world.
why do they say the human birth is so rare?
It is because in this human birth you can realize God directly. In the other worlds, it's like they give in the Kathopanishads, like when you see your reflection in the river, you can see truth there. Even in the highest heaven, you can see it as light and shade. But in the human heart, you can see it like you see yourself in a mirror, straight, direct. That's why. And in this, we learn our lessons quickly because there's a kind of a balance, kind of beautiful balance between joy and sorrow and pleasure and pain, happiness and misery and sin and virtue. You learn your lessons quickly. Imagine if you are there for a party and there's a continuous party, continuously. What will happen to you? Your body will break down. Your mind will go crazy. Your nervous system and immune system and all will not function. And at the same time, you cannot have constant misery. It will malfunction. Your body will malfunction. You need a kind of a perfect, you can say, environment to have the kind of optimal, you can say, experience and knowledge. Sometimes you are buffeted by joy, and then suddenly, you come. Oh, what happened? The unseen slap on my face. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's why they say, Swami Vivekananda says, even the smaller gods, they would love to acquire a human body. Oh, that's so we have something which is extremely precious, and we need to utilize it.
Swamiji, can you elaborate on perceiving from the heart versus the mind?
No, Can we go through this and then later on we'll just briefly. This is the kind of a center, the heart center, the anahata, where the lower energies and the higher energies intersect. Okay. Oh yes. Briefly, Shri Ramakrishna says, when the mind reaches to the heart center, that person sees everything as luminous. What is this? What is this? What is this light? Where does it come from? Okay. Swami Vivekananda says, when layer after layer of the mind is opened, you see the universe in its subtle and causal, you can see, dimensions. So when we are seeing this world, we need this instrument. But when we see through this, you can see everything as luminous light. Okay. You will see divinities. Oh yes. And that is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. This is the door where you keep on proceeding to higher and higher. In the body, we take this as a kind of a reference point. Is it here exactly? Let's cut it open and let's enter inside. That will not. So a little later, okay, and Pancha Parvan, which has 5 stages of 5. Page 67, we have on the second line, and Pancha Parvan, which has 5 stages, which has for its stages of 5 varieties of pain-bearing obstructions. Oh, kleshas. Kleshas. Ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, and clinging to life. Here we have the clinging to life. And this is in the Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutras talk about avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So, abhinivesha, the clinging to life. I don't know. I've experienced that before many times. So, whenever death is approaching, no, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. No, hold on to life. It's like that. It's that also muddies the waters of consciousness, of the mind. You see. So we have the first is ignorance. Obviously, that's the root. And then from ignorance, don't you know who am I? Huh? I'm one of the greatest souls that ever was born. There you are. Egoism. And then I'm attached to this thing or that thing, or it might be a sentient or an insentient object, doesn't matter. And then aversion. If I have a attachment to a particular thing, I also need to have a kind of aversion. This thing is painful. I don't like that person. And then clinging to life. So these 5 painful, you can say, obstructions. And the Yoga Sutra is called the klesha, the pain-bearing obstructions. These are the things that obstruct you, constantly obstruct you. So the author of the Yoga Sutras, he's careful. He's saying these are the 5 enemies that needs to be countered. 5? No, you go down to their root, which is ignorance. If you get hold of that ignorance, the rest of will all fall away. So, in every religion, there is a kind of a, in Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism, Vedanta, of course, ignorance is the cause of this misperception of this Brahman. I see the same Brahman, which is this reality, as the world. And what is the cause of that? It's ignorance, avidya, or maya, or prakriti, whatever. Now, when we talk about ignorance, in Vedanta has got another aspect. Oh, When you go and pray, you feel so good. And then the priest comes saying, you don't need to worry at all. God loves you. And He loves. Yes, but I should. He should give me a kind of $1,000 at least right now, if He loves me so much. That God cannot do, but He loves you. He'll do everything for you. See, God is making the sun rise and the moon rise and the stars shine and this and that. Swami Vivekananda said, as if God never had anything to do but create the suns and the moons for these babies. Vedanta will say, nothing doing. All that love business and all God loving you and all that, He will not do. You take the responsibility on your own shoulders. So, the dependence on God or goddesses or smaller gods and goddesses, it just simply does away. If you want to grow, you better start believing and doing things yourself. Don't depend even on the gods. Don't depend on nature. Don't depend. It's unstable. So God will save you. Wait, let me save myself first. That's a difference between Vedanta and other religions. It's a kind of a palliative. It kind of puts you to sleep nicely. It's a comfortable religion. Well, Vedanta is it's a discomfortable religion.
Where does grace come in that?
There you have. You have the grace of the Guru and the grace of God, so that you can understand yourself. Not that you can get $1,000. I go to hey, that's the grace of, hey, God is gracious to me. Really? And He's killing off a few million people right now. What kind of grace is that? You always have this kind of contradictions, always. Wherever you have a personal God, you will always have this contradiction. So Vedanta says, take the whole responsibility on your own shoulders. Take it there. And you are the creator of your own destiny. Don't wait for grace. Don't wait for anything. You know now that you are by nature divine. Realize it. Do you want someone else to come and help you walk and talk and this and that? You do it yourself. So, yeah, so we have in this way, then Brahman together with its manifestations in the form of cause and effect, karya, cause and effect, the static and the dynamic. Sri Ramakrishna will say that same snake, when it's moving, it's called a dynamic aspect. When it's still, it's called a static aspect. It's the same snake. It's the same Brahman. When it is in the process of creating, preserving, and destroying, it is called Shakti of the universe. Because we cannot have two realities. It will create a big problem. You have to, one in heaven and one here. No. Then where? No. One in God and one in me. No. And this is where people don't like Vedanta. Yes. Swami Vivekananda once, during his lecture, suddenly stopped and said, he put a hand on his head, I am God. And the people, thunderstruck. What is he saying? Those who understand it, you are that God who you are seeking. Why do you seek that God outside yourself? So he gives the example of a king. If he goes mad, he keeps rushing out of his palace and saying, have you seen the king? I'm looking for the king. Where is the king? He is the king. Somewhere deep down, we are in this quandary. We are that Atman. We are that reality. And now we are searching for that reality. Yeah. That's a huge, you can say, blunder. And blunder in the sense is because of that ignorance, avidya. Somewhere the scales fall off, and like talking about grace, then yeah, the grace of the Guru makes you open. Hey, where's that? Oh, here, within you. There. Yeah. So this stream, this river, and its five streams, and five cognitions, and one mind, and the five vital forces, the five objects, and all the five sorrows, and various things, is just to wake you up. Just to wake you up. This is the reality which is perceived now in its turbulent aspect. It is also life-giving. And see that life-giving. And there are people who will keep on insisting on living on the slopes of a volcano. And that volcano, oh, it had exploded some couple of centuries ago. Now it's okay. But it is still rumbling. It's fertile. The land is very fertile. They will keep on. They'll keep on courting danger. They'll keep on for a few extra bucks. So humans are that, you can say, risk takers. We do take risks, and even at the cost of life. So what is there? Till I'm alive, I can make a few more bucks. Here we are. We are risk takers. We need to now take that risk, take that step, and understanding that this river, which is turbulent, also is life-giving. And now, if you look at this river just as the river of matter, of materials, cosmic materials, then it is keeping you kind of poised. Be careful. This is what I have to avoid. These are the things that come, and I need to be poised. Now, if I look at it as a kind of a river of consciousness, as I said, this whole river, because analogy was before you could come in. People lived on the banks of the rivers, and it was life-giving, threatening also. And slowly they kept on worshipping that river, and they thought of the river as a kind of a goddess. And the bigger the river, the bigger the goddess. So we have all these great goddesses, rivers. And whether they are real or not, oh, Sri Ramakrishna saw the Mother Ganga coming down. Oh, yeah. So he perceived. So he used to call the river Ganga as Brahmavari, liquid. Yeah. In fact, he's saying in this age, Brahman has taken this liquid form to purify us, in order to purify us. Wonderful. So he used to go Gangavari, Brahmavari. The water of Ganga is the water of Brahman. So we have this. And is it only confined to the Ganga? What about us here? No, you look at all waters like that, kind of a liquid, you can say, reality, in form of a liquid reality, pouring through our lives, circulating within us, leaving us. So this whole universe is a kind of a huge river of consciousness, and we are in it, swimming there. Yeah. And in fact, in one small quotation, Swami Vivekananda says, towards the end, he is writing in a letter, I am like a piece of glass floating on the ocean of consciousness. There we are.
White eye.
Yeah.
White eye.
Huh?
White glass.
Because it's reflecting that consciousness,
Consciousness.
pure, luminous. You got it? There is a piece of stone. Hey. So that's what. As you keep on polishing the glass of your mind, you'll reflect more and more of that consciousness, which is flowing inside and outside. Which is from outside coming inside, and then you are reflecting that consciousness. So, is it different from that consciousness which is everywhere? No, but the Vedanta scriptures it gives an example of suppose you go to a darkened room and a chink of light pours in through a kind of small aperture somewhere. You don't see that light pouring through it if it's okay if it's daylight, but you see that light reflected where? In wood, in or in glass. Glass. So you have a small kind of a mirror that starlight, or you can say even a sunlight, just pouring through a small chink. It's reflected more in that mirror than in wood or concrete or iron, anything. So even in our minds, that light of consciousness, it's reflected the most. It is there where we catch it, and this is there where we start our journey. This is the spiritual, we can say, heart. And as we open that, we enter into the spiritual realms, till realms, dimensions. Till that time, we are still bogged down, or if it's dragged down by the body and its needs and its wants, and makes us kind of ordinary. So we will stop here for today. There you are.